think it's so common, and we don't have a ton of data on, what happens. I think what we see is in the short term, your body is amazing, right? That's why we study it, and it wants to be in homeostasis. Over the long term, without a period, we see severe effects on bone, and potentially fertility. And so, I mean, like, speaking from experience, I didn't have a period. I didn't think of, I performed fine, and then all of a sudden had repeated stress fractures, but that didn't take until several years of no period. And so, like, if anything, your body can maintain and perform really well up to a certain point. I mean, I don't think we have the data now. What's the long-term effects of that on fertility, et cetera? But there is strong data showing that it has a severe negative impact on bone. But some athletes don't care in the moment. And so I think it's about having those conversations. No one ever told me, like, here are the impacts of not having a menstrual cycle. At the same time, arming them that having estrogen and progesterone in those higher levels, that's what's depressed or suppressed in those women, can actually help increase performance. So, I mean, my counter would be, could you actually be performing better? And could you do it longer? So, like, I always, sometimes we have those peak performances, and then we see women that they can't sustain it. And so I think, really making more space for the fact that they could be doing even better and have a greater longevity.
Did you have a bone scan or DEXA scan to see what it was like post?
Yeah. No, and I mean, I love that question too. It's one thing I study, is that we don't have any normative data for females. So at the time, like, my data looked normal compared to NHANES, which is just the average everyday person. And we still have that. So, like, now when we scan our female athletes, even if they're normal, to me, that's a red flag. They should be well above normal to not be considered low. And so I think the other thing is it takes time, right? Bone takes very long to turn over, 9 to 12 months at least. And so it's not this one-time snapshot. Like, once you're there, there's, more things to consider.
And just a quick question too, Ab. I maybe you're reaching a question, but let's assume body fat was equal in two women, and it probably wouldn't likely be the case, but the body fat is equal, but one is ultra endurance and one is a 100-meter sprinter. Are there differences in how maybe menstruation or the cycle is impacted specific to the training stimulus, as opposed to potentially just perhaps the body fat in itself? Does that make sense? Do we know if a certain type of training stimulus significantly changes it more than the other?
Well, I mean, maybe one way I'll interpret that is that we've studied a lot of times people think it's a low body fat that is directly impacting these things. And I would argue it's actually a muscle issue. So those individuals with higher muscle and higher quality muscle have better bone density and lower stress fracture injury.
Right.
And so with our sprint training individuals, they can still have menstrual cycle irregularities, but it's different. Most of them have much higher muscle quality. I'd also argue those individuals have higher testosterone based on the stimuli, which is a protective effect. Yeah, so I think you often see it in that high volume, low quality muscle kind of group.
Yeah.